We are back on what they're calling the Mike Gormley show, and I'm Mike Gormley. I am my mentor, Jeremiah Higgins, is lurking about somewhere. But we are also back with Jessie Colin Young, and we've been talking a great deal about Get Together, which is a signature tune. But there's another song of interest called Darkness, Darkness. I mean, it ended up, didn't it end up with a Grammy or something? I wasn't familiar with it until I started doing research.
Robert Plant got a Grammy. I remember he redid it when I was living in Hawaii, and he's calling me from, I don't know where he got my telephone number, on my landline, from the back seat of a limo in London, telling me about the album that he'd made of all these kind of folk singer songs from that time, and Darkness being one of them. And he wanted to send me they made 5 different mixes of it. In those days, I guess they were doing different mixes for different, different stations, different approaches to, but it was marvelous. And he did a great job.
We were talking earlier, by the way, we came out of that commercial with a great song called Rich Top, and we can get into that later, but are you observing the music industry these days? You observing what's going on, or are you just doing it your way? You started doing it your way before anybody else, so you may be past it, but a lot of complaints about songwriters making a living now and all that sort of stuff. I mean,
they've somehow usurped all the money. And it used to be, if you could sell a couple hundred records, in the beginning, the record deals were so tiny. The percentage, I think our Youngbloods' first percentage was 1.5% of retail.
Yeah.
And that was probably 15 or 16% by the time I got to Warner Brothers. Of course, this is bands fighting for more of the pie, which we deserved. But and now it's the streaming. The amount of streaming you have to earn $100 is
it's amazing. What was it? I've forgotten the artist who went to Washington, and he explained he's a very, very big artist. I've escaped the name, but he had sold over, or at least had over 5 million streaming, downloading, whatever. And for that, he received about $1,500.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's right. I don't know what the hell anybody can do about it at this point.
Well, we'll see. Look at what we're right in the middle of a big UAW strike, United Auto Workers. It's funny, my grandpa was a union organizer.
Oh, funny.
So I've got that stream in my, but we bucked the system as much as we could when we were in it. That's the only way we ended up with 15% instead of if we'd have said it was okay to pay us $1.50 cents. $1.50 cents, really?
$1.50 cents per record. It's just amazing. And some people got kind of wealthy off that.
Kind of circled back to $1.50 cents.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how, but yeah, we got the UAW strike, we got the writers' strike, and there's going to have to be young musicians will have to lead us in a music strike.
Do you think that's even possible? I mean, with all due respect, the musicians union doesn't have the power, or I don't even know if they have the desire to do things like that.
I don't think we can depend on the musicians union, but SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah.
course, I'm a member of that. That's a strong union.
Yeah.
So we need a new a new singer-songwriters gathering, and then we need to strike for some reasonable sharing of the profits.
Right.
The
Right.
streamers have just they've
It
walked
just
over
go,
the
it
wall.
just goes back to when these platforms were formed. They made the deal with the record companies, not with the writers or the publishers. They made the deal with the record company, and the record company designed it for the money to come to them. And
Yes, it worked.
it worked for them, yeah.
Yeah, it worked for them.
But yet they're still signing people, and there are people writing songs, and it's all still going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really, the only way you can make money as a musician nowadays is to go on the road and
Mm-hmm.
maybe sell merchandise.
Right.
And if you don't have a big following, you don't sell a lot of merchandise, and you don't get to play a lot of big places. So it's a tough situation. I don't mean to be a downer about it for those who are listening. I mean, you keep writing, you know, but it's scary at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, it's really tough. That's so poor because people, it's such a poor way to to treat us because people depend on music. And I mean, it is marvelous. I remember my son actually got me on Spotify. He was at Berklee College of Music studying music, and in Boston. And
That's where my son went, by the way.
oh yeah,
Yeah, long time before.
yeah. And so he got me on Spotify. I said, "You mean I can just hear Howling Wolf just like that?"
Mhm.
You know, uh, obscure blues players that I had grown up on and loved. I said,
You can
"This is
find them all on there. You have to admit, you
yeah,
can find them.
yes,
You think of a song that wasn't a hit in 1952, you can find the darn thing on there usually.
yeah, it's a shame.
It's like
It's a
it's kind
wonder.
of like a listener's paradise, but it's not.
It is a listener's paradise, but it's not leaving. It's not really leaving a living for people
Right.
who want to write songs and just play music and write songs. And it's been, I haven't done any other work for money. I would since I started playing music.
Yeah.
And I have been through a lot of different curves of making nice money and very little.
Yeah.
Esket houses with the bottom there, but I've been able to make a living at it and have a life, and that's what I want to see for young artists today.
Okay. We've we've got another commercial coming up, and we're going into it with a song called Lafayette Waltz. Um, uh, can you tell me about that song a little bit? It's an interesting title.
Yeah, this is a song written by a man named Clifton Chenier,
Oh, sure.
and a friend of mine, Michael Hurley, said, "Jess, you ought to listen to Clifton Chenier." This was early on, and I fell in love with Cajun music. I didn't know about Cajun music, and of course, I said, "Oh yeah, that's what jambalaya is all about."
Uh-huh.
I had learned the Hank Williams song, maybe 2 or 3 years before that from. I grew up in New York, so not a lot of country music on the radio. None actually. When I was growing up, only doo-wop and rhythm and blues and rock and roll. So yeah, I learned Hank Williams from a young man from the Midwest who lived in the same rooming house that I did. And then I thought, well, what a wonderful, let's take a song that's the roots of Cajun music and put it with
Uh-huh.
jambalaya, a
You
song that
came up,
was inspired by
Well, let's take a listen to Lafayette Waltz as it goes into a commercial, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.